Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and just wanted to bring you another update. Going to be doing some work today. So I basically went over the suspension and the forks and the shock. I'm not going to rebuild, so I'm going to be putting this back on the bike. I'll be doing the suspension for my 02 ZX7, but not for the track bike. This bike doesn't have that many miles with the new suspension, so I'm going to leave it as is. In the forks there's Öhlins internals, Öhlins springs, and Öhlins valving, and this is just a Penske double adjustable, and it's already dialed in. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be cleaning up the chassis, and I'll be touching up polish on the frame, and I'll also be cleaning up the bolts and the axles over there. You can see I'll be cleaning those up, and already started cleaning up the hardware. And you see the engine over here, but I've been soaking these parts in degreaser. I didn't get to wire brush these yet. I'm going to do that now, but you can see how this came out. It's been soaking in degreaser, and I didn't sand it. I'm not trying to get it perfect. I just want it clean, and then I put the wire brush to it. So I'm gonna put the wire brush to these pieces here and get the surface rust off and get the rest of the grease, and just get that all cleaned up. These are for the shock. These are the shock mount bolts, and once I have all of this stuff cleaned up, then I'll put the suspension on the bike. And then once the suspension's on the bike, we'll finish, like I said, we'll finish touching everything up and get the frame back to make it pop like it did the way it was before. I'm not going to paint the frame, just too much work for a track bike. But the polish, I don't have a problem with polish. I know a lot of guys don't really like polished frames, so, but it doesn't really bother me. I actually like it. So that's it. I'm going to get to work, and just going to bring you the updates as I proceed. Thing is completely clean and degreased. Over here you got brake caliper bolts for each side. This is the rear nut for the wheel. This is a front wheel spacer, and these are the chain adjuster blocks or brackets. This is the shock mount bolts and nuts. I can't remember where this one goes. These right here are the triple tree clamps that tighten it onto the forks. But they're clean. There's a little bit of oxidation. That's where you see some rust, a little bit of rust color. I don't have the chemical. I may have to go out and buy some, but I could let them soak for a few hours and get the oxidation off. I may or may not do that. I probably will. We'll see. But the main thing is that they're clean and there's no grease on them. So what I'll probably start doing in a little bit is cleaning up the frame. And then once the frame is clean, I'm going to put the suspension back in. I'm going to put the rear shock back in, and also the forks. So I'll get some light over here in this work area, and then we'll get everything mounted up. I'm still waiting for the crank to come back from APE out in California. Hopefully it should be soon. But once the crank comes back, then we'll be ready to start building this motor out. So everything is ready to go. We're just waiting for the crank to come back, and then we can start getting things ready. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and we'll get the chassis sorted out, and then hopefully, you know, we'll get it to the point where all we got to do is build a motor and install it. All right, so we'll pause the camera again and set up the workspace, and I'll be back in a few. Now, I did have some of this evapor rust left over, and so I have the pieces soaking in it. It's usually 1 to 12 hours depending on how bad they are. These didn't need much, they were just a little bit rusted. I didn't even put all the, you know, these pieces didn't need to go in. So have that in there. Everything's ready to go. The next segment of this video, I'm going to touch up the frame, and as you can see, it looks a little dirty. I'm going to restore its shine, just make it pop. Not going to go too crazy, but ideally I'd like to get it real clean. Once I get the frame cleaned up, then and just the main, I'm not even going to do the sub. I may just maybe do a light cleaning on the subframe, and then I'm going to put the forks and the shock back in, and should be moving right along. And as you can see, this frame has seen better days, so I am going to show you how I restore my frame. And it basically starts by wet sanding the frame and then either going over it with polish, or if the polish doesn't get it the way I want, I go over it with the rouge, the white rouge. So I'm going to sit the camera down, try to find an ideal spot, and I'm going to get started on this thing. Going crazy with the frame. I'm just trying to get it looking half decent. So right now this is 1000 grit. From here I may go to 1500, or I may go straight to 2000. Let's see how it comes out. It'll feel rough, and then it'll start to feel smooth. How's that looking, fellas? It's feeling nice and smooth now. So I didn't like the way it was looking before. So now I went over it with the white rouge, and that's looking mint. There we go. That's a polished frame. That's looking mint. So I'm gonna do the same to the rest of the bike. 1,000, 2,000, 2,500. Then I'm gonna use. I'll probably go straight to the. I don't know if I'll use the mothers first and then do the white rouge on top of it, or vice versa. But either way, it looks like I'm gonna have to put the white rouge on it just to get it to pop. Yeah, looking good. So that's how I restore my frame. I was gonna leave it the way, but it was just a little bit dull for my taste. So gonna go with this. See, you can see your reflection in there, and that's ultimately how you want it to look. You can see the difference from that to that. So I'm gonna sit the camera down and finish this up the right way, and then I'll do another update. These are done. They were soaking in the rust remover. I pulled them out, rinsed them off, and everything looks really good now. I feel comfortable mounting this on the bike, so I'm gonna finish getting the chassis ready. As you saw from the clip just now, I was working on the frame a little bit. Lighting isn't the best. You can see how nice and shiny that is now. You can see your reflection in it. And frame's been sitting in the basement for a couple of years, so oxidation is normal. You know, there was some oxidation buildup, so that's what the wet sanding is for. You get that out. Since it was already polished, I did 2,000. I'm sorry, I did 1,000, then 2,000, then 2,500. I didn't have 1,500 grit, but I was still able to get a half decent job out of it. And then you can either go straight to the white rouge and then the mother's aluminum polish. But when I went straight to the white rouge, it just seemed like it was a little bit uneven. I don't know why. Maybe my roller's a little bit old. So I did the mothers in between, wiped it down, and then I went over it again with the rouge, and for whatever reason that seemed to work really good. So I'm gonna do the swing arm. I'm gonna touch up the rest of the frame up here in the front. I'm gonna do the other side, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get the suspension mounted. And then we'll probably end this video for this update. So hope you guys are enjoying what you're seeing, and stay tuned. Side, you saw I struggled a little bit with that. I was trying to muscle it up, but I'm out of shape, so I got tired. So I ended up just using a ratchet tie down and lift the rear of the bike just so I can line up the mounting holes and get it back installed. So now that the bike is stabilized, I'm gonna get in there and clean up in here because it's a little bit messy. Once I get it clean, then I'll get to work on the swing arm again. But the Penske is installed, and I'll probably mount this remote reservoir back to where I had it before. So I'm gonna get started on the cleanup, and I'm gonna finish up the frame from last night, and then bring you an update. Lighting is not the best, but frame looks much better than before. I did the outer main frame, touched up the swing arm, and just a portion of the subframe that's visible. Not gonna go crazy with the subframe because I'll probably saw it off one day in the back, right around there, because I won't really need the headlight. This is gonna be track only. Here's the other side of it. Lighting is not so great, but much better after touching it up with the black and then the white rouge and then the mother's aluminum polish. So I'm happy with it. I'll probably touch it up again in a couple of weeks or so, or probably right after the engine is mounted, just to make it really pop. So happy with this job. I got the rear shock in, and didn't torque it down, but I have the bolts in there just to hold it up. I'm gonna do a little bit more cleanup, get the forks in, and then just leave it like that, and then hopefully the crank should be back in a couple of weeks, and then get the motor built. So that's it for this update. I'll do one final update once the forks are in, and thanks for watching, guys.